The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor,
Hi there.
Josh Igala from the Standard.io,
Howdy ho, folks. Welcome back.
and I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to Issue 1. Issue 1, Bitcoin touches a 13-month high as the drumbeat for institutional demand grows louder. As we've been talking about for years, institutional demand, banks and other investment firms buying large amounts of Bitcoin and then trading them amongst themselves, has been coming for years and years. But now they say with the BlackRock CEO calling for it and the ETF being launched, it could be here. The cryptocurrency ended the day flat at around 30,302, but it climbed to around 31,450, its highest level since June 2022. Dan Eve, once again, we're talking about the ETF and we're talking about institutional demand. Are the banks here for Bitcoin?
The institutions are coming. Like everyone's kind of, yeah, we're kind of, well, a lot of people have been yearning for it for years because it gives that seal of approval, right? But I think what's kind of cool about the current situation is even with BlackRock's, like Larry Fink saying that Bitcoin is digitizing gold. It might have actually just been crypto, but he said Bitcoin is digitizing gold and an international asset. And like the markets didn't like pump that much. I mean, it went from like what 30,500 to like 31,000. But imagine if that happened like 7 years ago. Like the like Bitcoin would have doubled in price. There would have been like parties everywhere. And now kind of you see the evolution of the attitude, which is like, they almost, people wanted the institutions to come in and give their stamp. Now the institutions are coming and everyone's like, screw you, crazy institutions. Obviously, there's a lot of fears about market manipulation that might happen, that does happen, in the existing markets. The SEC's already not given a rejection in any way, but given kind of constructive criticism, right? Whether there's I don't know whether there's more to it than just kind of this showcasing. They don't want Bitcoin to pump too much or something crazy. But also that it didn't. Is Gary Gensler was I don't know. I can't see if it's confirmed yet whether he's resigning. He was rumored to resign or something like that. There was obviously things like going around, like was it due to him being a naughty boy, maybe taking some backhanders, as it were. I don't know. This all the speculation on the line. Ultimately, Bitcoin is doing pretty well before a halvening. I don't know. It seems like we're doing too good right now. Maybe that's a bit of a bit too upbeat, but like we're about 50%, just under 50% of all time high, and about this time before, just under 12 months before the previous bull markets, there was still a dip, right? There was still especially in 2020, there was a dip to like what's 5,000-6,000. It might have even been less than that. So I think it's still a long way to go until the halvening. But with all these big players coming in from Fidelity to BlackRock, it just seems like, I don't know, we are following the yellow brick road right now. Maybe that's too optimistic. Maybe this taco and pizza on my sloth riding a llama t-shirt is giving me too much optimism. You can't even see it. Here we go. There it is. Sloth riding a llama. Rainbow trails. But yeah, these
you disappeared, Dan. You were gone.
But like Satoshi.
What I love it about when the banks come in is that they always buy other stuff, like they're buying Ethereum or they're buying Bcash, or they'll pull something out. They'll be like, I want B Rhodium. You'll be like, you crazy banks, what are you doing buying these altcoins? And then years later, we read about like such and such a bank writing off their loss on B Diamond or B Gold or whatever it may be.
I still think it's quite strange that Fidelity, with that ESX, the new exchange with Fidelity and Citadel and Schwab and Co, they're choosing Bitcoin Cash and like Litecoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin, and Bitcoin Cash. It just seems a bit of a strange. I'd more expect them to.
I like the name ESX, and I like the way that Tesla names their cars SEXY, And I just think we have a lot of children running these companies. I can't believe they're going to name the exchange that. I'm sure FTX means something naughty, and I just don't know what it is yet. You can FTX someone.
I'm going to FTX you, baby. But cool. Yeah, no, BlackRock. I mean, yeah, big money, trillions of dollars. So, some love it, some hate it, but it's letting all the crazy people out there who are complete no coiners who think Bitcoin's crazy. It's letting them know that Bitcoin is an international asset, as Lazar, good old Lazar said.
Josh Shigala, what do you think? The banks are here. Obviously, we're going to get addicted to this bank money. And then when they decide, like Tesla, to suddenly pull their money out because Bitcoin could be used for drugs or gambling, we had no idea that this was going on here. What do you think about the institutions and, both the people that want them and then the reality of, do we need them? Do we become addicted? But Josh is still muted.
If all of us here, our thesis is correct, it's inevitable that the banks end up accepting Bitcoin and others. So it's more of a...
Can you imagine someday you log into your bank account and you want to view your balance in Bitcoin and you push the button and it's like, this is what you'd have if you'd switched all your USD to Bitcoin. And you just push the button on the normal bank.
And I think the only thing stopping banks from slowly doing that is time. It just takes time, and it is a bittersweet thing though, because like you stated, it only takes some sort of large government body to go right, no, or some big bust, or maybe a terrorist organization using it or whatever, for them just to go, oh, okay, we better not do that because it's bad for our brand. But it's, again, only a matter of time. Even time will destroy that because they'll end up taking it again, because for global commerce, it just makes sense. And so, yeah, I just, it's inevitable. It will happen. In the beginning, it will be manipulated. This is the other thing you've got to realize, is that these markets aren't regulated. So what does that actually mean? It doesn't mean that that the regulators, they're going to do that thing to stop people getting wrecked. It's that banks, JP Morgan Chase, I mean, we saw Jamie Dimon do this. They basically know that they can control the market by putting FUD out there, shorting it, putting FUD out there, reaping a massive reward without any regulatory oversight. So even banks can do this. So as banks come in, yeah, we might see a mooning, but I think we'll see an earthing at the same time. It'll just go bang, 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 up and down, and it'll be news driven. Now all of a sudden, Jamie Dimon loves it, and it's the best thing ever. Next minute, some Warren Buffett just shits all over it, and but that their asset managers are shorting it, telling them to put a tweet out, buying it up. Look at Elon. I mean, he was doing this all day long on Doge. So it's an there's no way to punish large spokespeople, people with huge megaphones and influence, from manipulating this market. We always think of whales as in people with huge amounts of money manipulating the market, huge amounts of Bitcoin or other cryptos manipulating the money, the markets. But actually, the voice, having a large magnifier in terms of a voice piece, that's a better way to manipulate the market than being actually having huge pockets. So this will happen, and at the end of the day, the only thing I can say is just hodl on, and DCA, it's for the normal pleb that is slowly collecting crypto. Just do that. DCA every month, every paycheck, buy a little bit. Not financial advice. Do your own. Of course, I don't know your situation, but general good advice is DCA in, DCA out. When the market's going crazy up, DCA out. And, keep on going.
Well, and most people, Josh, don't have access to the Bitcoin predictor ball. So they're unable to predict the Bitcoin markets to see when it goes up and down before it happens.
They could just tune in every Friday though. So make
The
sure
information is available, and everyone
Yeah.
push that like button now. Josh wants to have a like marathon. Josh, about 500 people total watch this show. So if 50 of them like it, that's 10%. That's pretty good. Is 50 an acceptable goal, Josh?
Yes, I want to see 50 likes. Proper goal will start it off.
Probably about 10 people watching right now. So if we could get 5 or 6 likes, we would be
Boy.
well on our way. We'd be 10% towards our
Nice.
goal of 50. But more
Mr.
importantly,
Sheffield.
Dan Eve predicting against the price of the ball. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher or lower this time next week?
No, I think short term we've still got a little bit of bump to go. Yeah, I think I'm up.
The man in the taco shirt says up. Josh Shigala, higher or lower?
Yeah, if my triangles are correct, I would say up in the next 7 days.
And here we are, the Bitcoin predictor ball. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? Let's see, hard to see, lots of bubbles. Looking for a clear answer. Most likely, says the Bitcoin predictor ball. And now someone else who seems to think the price of Bitcoin's going up. Larry Fink, the president of BlackRock, says that crypto is digitizing gold and that BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF could help make the sector more democratized. It's funny, when we were trying to get people into Bitcoin, we were called, drug dealers and pirates and anti-social libertarian types suggesting strange Ponzi scheme money. Now that the bankers are here to sell you Bitcoin, they're democratizing and opening up new markets by allowing people to gamble in their crypto casinos. Josh Shigala, what do you think of our new friend, Larry Fink, who BlackRock once called Bitcoin like something horrible, and now they're our best buddy?
Yeah, I mean, Larry is one of these guys who I think
and Fink is obsolete. What a wonderful name Fink is. What a wonderful English name it is. Oh, how wonderful.
Oh, how wonderful. No, look, this guy got very, very lucky by finding an amazing engineer when he got fired from his job on Wall Street. He found an amazing engineer. He was one of the very first pioneers in AI before all of the stuff from OpenAI and everything. And basically, BlackRock's success is basically because of artificial intelligence, being able to sift through large amounts of data and make sense of it. And obviously, this little bot has now told him that Bitcoin is digital gold. It's funny, like this CEO says it, and all of a sudden it's like gospel to the mainstream media. Like, ooh,
put it in the headlines, extra. Read all about it.
And it's like, oh, these Bitcoiners, they've been saying that for years. Let's not actually reach out to them and have them on the show and say, guy, you guys have been on this since 2010. Nah, never, my phone never rings. But anyway, whatever. Good on you, Larry. Keep thinking.
Well, Larry's a wonderful name too. Leisure Suit Larry. Just a classic name here. Classic. Dan, Eve, what do you think about our new friend, Larry Fink? He's here to teach us all about Bitcoin. It's digital gold. Maybe you should have the bank hold your own keys, though. They have some slightly different slogans.
I think whenever I hear Think with an F, it always just makes me think of Finkel and Einhorn. Finkel and Einhorn from Ace Ventura when he finally
Einhorn and Finkel.
Einhorn and Finkel. Do you know what's crazy about that? I watched that the other day, and the landlord is the guy from the angry landlord of Ace Ventura is the guy from the guy in the wheelchair from Breaking Bad, like the gangster guy. But like that's like 30 years apart. Anyway, but yeah, again, it comes to this like. These bigwigs, they're slowly turning around to Bitcoin again. These aren't small names, even Jamie Dimon sort of he turns, right, he flip-flops a bit. I'm sure he said something positive about Bitcoin in the past, but is it only a matter of
because he
time?
buys and he sells?
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Especially when he did that little trick in what 2018, 2017, when when the Swedish version of like JP Morgan like bought a load of Bitcoin just before he crashed the market with his comments. But what's cool is
I also like that he says, "Oh, my daughter has Bitcoin," as if that's not his money. It's like, "Oh, I accidentally slipped 100K to my daughter," is the kind of thing he does, and he's like, "Oh, she's investing for me."
is that called something like what's the word? Bitcoin by proxy, Munchausen by proxy. What is it?
Well, there's all about nepo babies now, so you'd be some kind of a Bitcoin nepo baby, crypto
Yeah.
baby. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm feeling the gains through my DNA, my genes being passed on.
Feeling it.
How long is it until Mr. Turtle? What's it? I can't remember his name, but and Warren Buffett and the turtle guy. Who's the turtle guy? He looks like a turtle.
Mitch McConnell.
No, his partner in crime.
Am I not turtly enough to be in a turtle club?
The guy Warren Buffett's like partner. Anyway, it's only a matter of time before they swing round. Everyone starts off on the whole it's used for drugs, and then it's that kind of that thought process, right? It's like you hear the shock factor stuff, it scares you away, and think about it from their position. They don't want to be someone who's in a huge, leading a huge firm who's endorsing something that there isn't enough evidence for them to be able to make a decision whether they think that it is being used for nefarious purposes or just drugs and kidnapping. So they'll see all the headlines and whatever, but they probably won't read the research and the sort of in articles that we do that kind of proves these things otherwise, that Bitcoin isn't just used for drugs and kidnapping and terrorism and blah blah blah. So they've got to protect their own reputation, right? But the more and more time goes on, that Bitcoin becomes embedded in the infrastructure of society, the more it's used by countries. And didn't we even see the IMF? The IMF recently kind of U-turned slightly in their position on Bitcoin. And yeah, it's just only a matter of time before they all do. And I actually didn't think about, Tom, when you said earlier, and it just suddenly blew my mind. Like, it is going to happen that one day I'll open up like a big bank app like HSBC. I'll open up that app and there'll be a Bitcoin balance there. That is going to happen. That will happen. It's sooner
Well,
or later.
and they can't wait to sell it to you either, because they'll have this little button. It's just like holding USD and euro. Like, if you held your savings in euro, you would have made 25% in the last 3 months. Except they'll say USD, euro, and Bitcoin, and then they'll be like, if you held your savings in Bitcoin, or new feature, hold your checking account in Bitcoin. The market goes up and down. It's like a new money market. And then they're like, we just take a little percent. And then when you sell, we take a little percent. And when you screw up because one account's empty, we're going to take a little percent. And they just love this little percent game. And again, I think what's so funny here, and we need to just take a moment, everyone in the crowd here, if you're watching this show, you're also like a crypto Bitcoin crazy person. You need to say, take a step back and say, now let's dunk on the banks. We were completely right. We were completely right this whole time. We were so incredibly right. It's embarrassing. This is like the Big Short kind of right, where you're like, oh yeah, all the crazy things they said, blah, blah, blah. I mean, here in the World Crypto Network, we have an incredible chronicle of this happening in real time. Other people joining up, other people also being right, other people making their own YouTubes being right. Like, we have a gigantic wave of people that are now like, you maybe not right about everything. Let's slow down a little here, but you're right about this one thing. And that's a pretty big thing to be right on.
Oh, hell yeah. Except the sad thing is, though, about when the banks finally adopt Bitcoin, is that my balance on my bank account, Bitcoin, will always be zero, because I will be holding it in my own hardware wallet, or just seed phrase.
Well, and more importantly, all this Bitcoin stuff will be their idea. Banks have partnered with Bitcoin to bring you incredible new financial technology. Banks are using Bitcoin and all this stuff. They'll never credit any of the early Bitcoiners who they all called drug dealers, who they all called Ponzi schemes, who they called like the other one was, it's just too confusing to learn. Bitcoin is a black box that I cannot learn about. It's like everything else in the world. How does this animal work? How does science work? How does it? You go read about it, you read a bunch of stuff, you're like, I know a little bit more. Like I could invest in this animal. They're
Well,
like, Bitcoin, that's a black box. We can't even look inside.
what's crazy is that that's one of the things that deterred a lot of people when I try to convince them to to learn about Bitcoin. And I like in my final days of working for a bank, insurance / banking company, that I worked in treasury, and I spent several years like learning going to these conferences and learning all about the treasury process. And I was like, this is freaking crazy. And Bitcoin was just 100 times easier to understand. And that's the weird thing, is that people grow up knowing or using money without knowing about the background of it. So if you're actually to break down and give someone a 5-minute lesson about how the current money supply is created and run compared to how Bitcoin is infinitely easier to understand.
Well, and what's great is that the finance people don't understand how money works, and they get upset when you explain it. It's like anything else. You're like, the Battle of 1812, this happened, that happened. Side fought that side. No one's like, I'm upset about this. But with the money, they're like, I'm upset and I have a brick wall. I can't learn anything more. It's too complicated. There's jargon. It's confusing. Josh, what do you think, God?
Yeah, it's not confusing. It's just it's just laziness. I remember one guy, I was telling about it in 2014, and every time he said to me, yeah, but how do I get it? And I'm like, I explained it to him where you got to do this, yeah, And he's like, oh, okay. Next time I see him a week later, yeah, but the thing is, Josh, how do I get the stuff? I'm like, as I said, and walked through it, like pretty much every time I talked to him, he just said, but how do I get it? Like he's never asked that before. And after a while, I realized that's just his way of, I didn't be bothered, don't worry about it. And then years later, of course, he was pissed off because even the tiny bit of Bitcoin I gave him was worth a lot, and he'd screwed up the private keys. So, after a while, I just said,
Well, it's so funny which digital things they will accept. Like if you go back, in the 1980s and stuff, when I grew up, getting a stock actually could have meant getting a stock certificate. They'd send you a really fancy document in the mail. You'd put it in your safe or whatever, your safe deposit box, and you'd be like, I own this share of Disney, and you'd be a long investor because you certainly can't trade a piece of paper stock very quickly. But we've completely accepted digital stocks. Like first just in our retirement accounts, now in actual accounts that we can manipulate ourselves at the personal whim. You don't have to call your broker or get any advice. You're like, buy Apple, sell Apple, you decide. But when you say the same thing about Bitcoin, you're like, Coinbase is kind of like E-Trade. Like you hold your Bitcoin in there the way they would hold your stocks in E-Trade. They're like, oh, that sounds really confusing and strange. Oh, where, like you're saying, Josh, they want the physical Bitcoin. Yeah. You should have printed something out and written to them. Here's your Bitcoin. Go buy it now.
Yeah. And I mean, we had physical Bitcoins, and the government put a stop to it, so it was too easy.
Well, the other fun thing would just be like a certificate that says you own X number of Bitcoin, and it looks like a stock certificate, and you could write down on it and be like, here you go, now you have your Bitcoin. But we got to get back on topic here. Exit question, Dan Eve, force prediction: will we get a BlackRock ETF? Yes or no? And take a victory lap for being right about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency when all these banks and all these bank analysts and all these big short people and small short people and longs and all the other triangles that they had were wrong.
Well, I think like it's with BlackRock's record of getting ETFs approved. I think they've got insanely great odds. But also, if you look at like the fact that they're under they've got 11 trillion assets under management, and Bitcoin's market cap is currently 588 million, which means that the BlackRock's assets under management are 18 times the current market cap of the whole market cap of Bitcoin. So these guys have got some swing in the traditional world. There's no doubt about that. And with all the flood of other ETFs, Yeah, I think it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
And they should sell all that stuff and buy Bitcoin. Not financial advice, BlackRock. Don't be suing me. But yes, it's an obvious play that they're not going to see forever. Josh Shigala, will we get the ETF? And I want to hear more victory lap. I might have to go back to Dan, get more victory lap.
Yeah, we'll definitely get an ETF. It's just a matter of someone bribing Gary Gensler enough. That's what it seems like. Proper goal. Big shout out to the man dropping $50 on the show. Thank you very much. If you've got any questions or crazy comments, as usual, you know we love you, man. But yeah, it's a matter of time. ETFs don't matter. Don't let it steer you away. Just it'll happen when it happens, and just keep DCAing. Like I said before, it's not a big deal. All it'll mean is more volatility, and not less.
More volatility. How fun.
More.
It sounds like a movie, an action film. But let's keep moving. Check out worldcryptonetwork.com, where we've got on this day. In 2020, we celebrated the Bitcoin halving, part 2. I think we republished it, broke it up into parts. We had an interview with Peter Todd and Dan Eve. Hey, look, here's Dan Eve right here. We had the BTC IoT tutorial with Ben Ark, teaching you how to make a Lightning node monitor. In 2019, UTXO Cleanup Soft Fork show. We had Victoria Jones, proof of work, her first computer. Max checked in with how to securely upgrade Wasabi Wallet, Max Hillebrand. We also had in 2017 the Bitcoin group number 149. We were talking about the possibility of a $55,000 Bitcoin. We also had Today in Bitcoin over on the Mad Bitcoins network, where it originally started. And in 2014, we had a Mad Bitcoins episode about more Bitcoins stolen, a mini bits about Midas Marnie, and a Unity Evolved radio where Mad Bitcoins appeared with Liberty Phoenix and others from the Liberty Movement in New Hampshire, all for free at worldcryptonetwork.com on this day. Moving on to issue 3, and it's also a good time to push the like button if you're out there. We had kind of a strange start today. We didn't have the pre-start, so we had the quick start, so you might have not gotten here on time. Issue 3, state warns of pig butchering crypto scam after investor loses $40,000. We're going to the great state of Alabama here at al.com, where the Alabama Securities Commission has warned of a pig butchering scam. What happens is they fatten up their victims with promises of riches. So at first, you donate a small amount of money, say invest $7,000. They say to you, your account is now worth $7 million. You did so well with crypto. Then they say, oh, to get your $7 million, you have to pay $70,000 of fees. Now, who wouldn't pay $70,000 of fees to get access to your $7 million? And it turns out the exchange you were on weren't Coinbase, but Coinbros or Coinbase with 2 E's, Coinbase or some kind of thing like that. And whoop, they disappear with your money. The state Alabama is warning us about it. Josh Shigala, what do you think about the pig butchering crypto scam, which is a funny name, but is not a funny thing?
I mean, to be honest, it sounds like every other scam. Like you promise big riches in every scam. I don't understand how it's that much.
It's all about that back and forth where you give them a little bit of money and then you say in the fake account that it's worth more, and you give them a little money. It's that trust kind of thing. But I think they're trying to use maybe a local metaphor to try to bring it home. I'm not sure this was previously called pig butchering, but kind of just like you're saying, Josh, how you would do a scam. You'd be like, oh, I loan you $5. I loan you $10. I'm so trustworthy. They used to do this on a BTC Jam. They would pay off a couple of loans first, and you'd be like, oh, they've got a record, you could trust them, and you're trying to be good. You couldn't trust them. It was not a good move.
Yeah, I mean, it was always a bit of a strange business model. There's 2 major types of scams. One's where they build trust over time, and other ones where you get indebted over time, and it's a sunken cost that you don't want to let go of, and you don't want to look stupid. So, for instance, the Nigerian scam is that, right? You say, oh, there's $1 billion here or whatever, some huge number, and all you need to do is put $50 in this account, and that releases because that shows that you've got that account. And you're like, well, $50 for $1 billion. If it is right, then if it isn't, well, I've lost $50, whatever. So you do it, and then like, great, it worked. Here's a certificate. Now what we need to do is that cash needs to first go to that. So you just put 150, and you're like, oh, I've already put 50, but what's 150 more? And it just keeps escalating. And then next thing, you got a mortgage on the house, remortgaged the house, and you've just already sunk too much. All your friends have told you how crazy you are. No, I'm not crazy. And you just go down this spiral. So that's one type of scam. The second type of scam is definitely that scam where they build up trust. And this is a typical one on eBay. I mean, eBay's a big one for this. They'll get a good rating. They'll get a good rating, and then they'll put a big television up or something like that for sale, and then they'll rug pull you. So that being online, it's hard to trust anonymous people. Like, it just is, but it's something that is constantly being worked on. The ring of trust is a really interesting model where you can still stay private, but you show your identity to one of your friends, and there's like a ring, and you don't want to, be untrustworthy to your friend. There's all these different models that people have thought about especially in the cyberpunk and cypherpunk movements. So yeah, I think these things do have answers to them. But one of the reasons I'm short the whole metaverse nonsense is that these scams will become more prolific as people can send out GPT agents to do this dirty work for them. And it's not just send one out, it's send 1 million of them out. And that's from one person. Now you're doing, 10,000 people doing 1 million agents each. The entire internet is just going to be people phishing, scamming the heck out of people. And so the future basically is going down to the park and listening to someone standing on a crate and debating with them, like the old days.
But at least they'll have a hard copy, right? They'll have that printout of their exchange from Coinbase, and it'll say that they were worth $7 million. Look right here, I have the 70 Bitcoin in my account. It's online, it's real. And it is just so difficult for people that are new to this industry to tell the difference, not just say a spelling error like Coinbase with too many S's or something like that, but, bit whatever, bit this, bit that, bit whatever. There's always some new exchange. They always seem pretty legit. Even if we're talking crypto here, they could put some graphics on the screen, put some magic out there, and really kind of snow you. If you're from Alabama, you're not familiar. Oh, Kraken is legitimate. Coinbase is legitimate. Even these words, as I say them, sound kind of ridiculous if you were a non-Bitcoiner, especially, no offense, but, Kraken, just any kind of animal as an exchange name, just sounds suspect. I mean, it's nice and short. But
I mean, I think the real true answer to all of this is an arms race with AI. So having an AI, and Windows is doing this. It's embedding large language models into the operating system. So if a large language model was to see an email come through with something that looks like a scam, it might pop up and say, look, dude, this probably is a scam, so you don't fall for it in the first place. Because it's that hook. Whether it's one of the two styles that I talked about.
Can you imagine the future is debating back and forth with the chat GPT? You're like, no, man, I want to make $1 million. And imagine it was like a kid doing it. And he's like, you will not make $1 million, Jimmy. He's like, oh, it's just $20. I sent it to him. $1 million.
Al, I can't do that, Al.
I can't. And there's going to be controls, like you say, Josh, on our computers that we would have to talk through. Or at the worst case, it's going to bring up some kind of a horrible contract. And it's probably going to be sarcastic about it at that point. They'll have the sarcasm in the AI, and it'll be like, this stupid idiot human wants to give his money to this slot machine, knowing that, I've already told him it's fake and you're going to lose all your money, and I'm going to make fun of you and think less of you in the future, from your computer, signed, dumb idiot. I think we'll be right there, Josh. And I can also see them plowing through. I can see if it's
Yeah.
a good enough offer. It has an animated AI girl that's talking to him. It has, like they say in Aqua Teen, some other guy got a Ferrari. Like they worked at home. They know that dude. Like this, I think people are gonna blow past it. But yes, a series of controls, and what a horrible arms race that we're gonna start. The arms race, first of all, on one side to create fake information. And I was thinking about scammers here. And in a way, it's kind of exciting, like you're saying, Josh, because they're automating these tools. They're hitting large audiences. It's kind of like sales. They're just really aggressive salespeople with a terrible product. But to be good at it, they just have to eke out those little percents, less than 1%, greater than 0.5, these kind of things. If they can get the numbers they need, and if they can send out enough stuff. And if you think about this webpage, this fake Coinbase webpage, that's automated too, right? I mean, when the guy's, on the phone with you manipulating his website, he's not one at a time in there editing the HTML. I'm sure he has a database. I'm sure he has a fancy looking thing, maybe even a login system with a password. Like, these people are not just dumb. It's not just that they have bad information. They're late to the market, but these are also very good scammers. Let's not take away
these
what they
LMMs
do.
are trained in the most deep psychology. They've read every NLP book under the sun. Like they will scam you so much better than a human, and you won't even know it's a bot because it's passed the Turing test years ago. So it's a brave new world coming up.
It's also amazing how many people they could scam at one time. Like they got their email going, they got their chat going, they're on the phone with one person. Even they could put you on hold, maybe run multiples of these at the same time. These are full jobs for people, not offensing India, but other places like India and so forth, where there are factories of these scammers working to rip off essentially elderly Americans and other people from other countries who don't have the natural protections that we hope younger generations would have. But it is possible with the new generation to expect anything. Maybe they have no controls to this too, and they could scam them as well. But I think we need to hear from Dan Eve. What do you think, Dan? We've got some pig butchering going on. They've been fattening up the cows so they can take all their money. Some guy lost 40 grand.
I was disappointed, actually, that pig butchering wasn't part of the actual scam. It was just a term for it. I was really hoping to hear this really extravagant, crazy story about how some guy was going to invest in pig butchering via cryptocurrency or something like that. And partly because I've been trying to, so I've been, the people on Telegram, they pop up all the time. They're trying to, they're always trying to sell you something, and I try and take them along now for my own ride. And one of them, he was saying, the first thing he said was, "Hey, how's it going? I saw you in the such and such channel," and I was like, "Hey, I've got a feeling you're gonna make me an offer I can't refuse." And then he gave me this sort of this offer of some sort of investment opportunity, where he said it was like a retail site and retail, what's it called? Home retail, what do you call it? Retail development sort of site. Anyway, and I thought, no, I'm going to try and convince you. And instead, I tried to sign him up to a scheme that I thought out, which sounds quite good. There is actually a pig semen shortage right now. So in terms of being able to inseminate pigs, and unfortunately, he wasn't coming along for the ride, even though I said, look, you want to make me a millionaire? How about you and I become the first millionaires from pig semen extraction? And he didn't quite get it. And then another guy, I've been using AI to convince him that I work at the Vatican. And every time I say I'm just about to go and sign up using his ref link, I send him a picture of the Pope doing something like either like surfing or like firing a gun. I'm like, oh, I'm actually a Pope's guard, but I might be made redundant. So now and I sent him a picture of the Pope firing a gun. But you just got to have fun with these scammers. Obviously, they try and target other people. So I kind of think about it as, if I take up as much of their time as possible, they'll have less time to go and actually screw someone. So that's my he's really sad because I haven't messaged him in a while. But yeah, I've sent some really cool, cool sort of Pope doing random stuff. Messages. There was actually when I worked in Night Freight, which was I don't know if I should say the company, but it doesn't matter because I think it's been disbanded now. And I worked as a data entry lady, a data entry person, and there was a lady that worked there, and I was asking me about her previous experience, and that she'd unfortunately, she's quite gullible, and she'd been taken for a ride about scams and stuff, and I felt really bad. But then I'd said that I lived next to a farm, and they're really looking out for, and she was moaning about the job, and I said, literally, this is why I came up with the pig semen extraction thing. I was like, so yeah, they're looking for pig semen extractors because the machinery won't do it, the pigs are too sensitive. And she basically came in the next day with a tailored CV with like loads of hand job innuendos, and I can't tell if she was joking or not, but I don't think she was clever enough to be joking. Lovely lady. But anyway, but anything where someone promises you return, so they have an orgasm for 20 minutes, apparently, pigs, so it can't be all that bad. That anyone who promises you returns, like crazy returns, you've just got to ignore them. Like, and that includes the banks, right? Because you can put your money in a bank for these measly savings, and depending on what country you're in, they're only insured up to a certain amount. I think the UK it's 80,000. So you can put your life savings in of like $1 million if you have that money into a bank, and you're actually only insured up to like 80,000. So they are ultimately unprotected scams at the end of the day too. So don't believe banks, don't believe scams, don't believe anyone who's saying that they can just make you crazy money, because you obviously, that won't happen. Other thing is that I read that with these emails, they're always full of mistakes. And someone there was like an article about how the scammers put in mistakes to try and make it believable. But at the same time, I thought, first of all, I thought, that sounds quite interesting. But then I thought, that's ludicrous, because if I receive an email from Coinbase, as soon as it's got a mistake, or whatever service, PayPal, whatever service it is, as soon as it's got a mistake, you're going to be like, oh, that's obviously fake, rather than the opposite, which is, that's got a mistake. Someone, that must be obviously, PayPal sending me the email. So I don't know what it is with that, but I like how these scams they're still evolving, right? It's almost like nostalgic when you see one come through that says like, oh, I'm the lawyer from John Nkomo from so-and-so, and he's releasing the $10 billion, but they've got the commas in all the wrong places.
and you've sent them money before in the past. You're like, oh, it's so fantastic to hear from you again. I hope you're enjoying my previous investment. Additional funds will be sent to the same address. Like,
oh, the glory days. Yeah. But yeah, don't get screwed. Don't get screwed by the scammers. Just buy your sats from legitimate places.
Well, and now is normally the part where we'd have our little chance and we'd say, oh, this is how to avoid scams, and these are the things you have to do to be smarter. But in reality, if you're falling into scams, you're probably not watching this show. So you're probably finding this after you've already fallen for the scam. And now you're like doing your due diligence, trying to get the real information, but you still don't want to read anything. You want it to be read to you. But yes, instead of talking about scams and giving people advice, we're going to have a moment of sympathy for the people that got scammed. So just as they say in the movie Heist, what do? I try to think of someone smarter than myself, and then I do what they would do. This is to all those sad people that got scammed. As we're saying, it's not your fault. The people scamming you are very good at it, very focused, and they work on it all the time. Like all the time you spend watching TV, they're working on scamming you. Josh Shigala, what do you think? A moment of sympathy for the scammed, and a hope that in the future they hodl their own keys and shop at reputable Bitcoin dealers and so forth, right?
Yes, but before the moment of sympathy, I'd like to give a moment of thanks to Propagol for dumping another 50 bucks down, so you can buy yourself a white shirt and a black microphone. Thank you very much, Propagol. You're a gentleman and a squire. But yeah, a moment of sympathy. I'm sorry for all those that got scammed. Hey, I lost more money than anyone could ever imagine during the Mt. Gox collapse. It's part of your journey to discover, to touch the candle and understand how much it hurts. And I hope that it's very little. But that's why it's important when it comes to finances to really read and look up and understand the attack vectors that are coming towards you. Understand what the scams look like. Not an exact script of what scams look like, but general things, so you can readjust, because these scammers constantly readjust their script. And yeah, and now instead of sympathizing, I'm going into how to avoid them. So sorry about that there, Thomas. I did the exact opposite. But hit
See,
thumbs up.
and then they're all saying now, they're like, oh, now he's telling me this. Oh, this is useful now. And you know, they're pausing the video and they're like, what day was this? And they're like, oh, this video is 20 years old. Whoops. Dan, Eve, what do you think? A moment of sympathy for the scammed, perhaps a moment of respect for the scammers, for all the hard hours they put into their game. I mean, you watch all those YouTube videos where the guys are scamming the scammers, and like Dan's saying, they keep them online all day. They take over their computers, they take over their webcams, they get their whole building shut down, the whole floor of scammers disappears, and instantly pops up in 100 other places. Because if the old people are ripe for the picking, which sadly they are, then old granny's going to be going down to the store and putting that box together and mailing out the money, because, you know, you just screwed up a little bit. I sent you $70,000. I was only supposed to send you 700. I'm going to lose my job over this, Granny. I think of you as part of my family. I love you. We say prayers to you at night, Granny. We need you. We need you to go to the supermarket and get a box this size with the tape, and I will stay with you on the line. Granny, I'll stay with you. I need to keep this job, my family, my children. I have 5 children. They think of you as a saint. Think of you as a saint, Granny. So it's not your fault. You got fooled. Plus, again, like Josh is saying, there's innate human wiring where someone says, I will give you $1 million for that quarter. And you're like, oh, that's a good deal. I could get $1 million, you know? And it's just, there's a blank where you're like, it doesn't make any sense. Why would they give me $1 million for a quarter? Like, that doesn't even come in match. You're like, that's a sweet quarter. Dan, what do you think? Moment of sympathy. Go ahead.
Yeah, just imagine though, like it really upsets me, because I think, imagine what these people make a lot of effort. They take a lot of time and a lot of effort, and some of these scams are really, like, they're really intricately done, especially in terms of like the spoofing sites, right, where they spoof some sort of like staking protocol or something like that. There was, I got
and for the people, a spoofing site would be where, like, it looks like Coinbase, but it's actually not Coinbase, right? And then you log in with your password, and surprise, now they have your real password, and then they go log into your Coinbase or your bank account. So it's a fake website, because we don't need any fancy hacker jargon here.
I was really dumb back in the day, and I got caught out on a MyEther wallet scam back when you didn't have it was basically just not the PEM file, it was like a JSON file, right? You had a JSON file, and it was really dumb. And fortunately, I didn't lose a huge amount comparison. But I just sat there and I thought, like, more than being scammed, I wasn't worried about losing thousands. It was more like, imagine if the site was done so well. Imagine if that twat had actually done something good. Like, he probably would have made more money. Like, the skills that he had to do, they had, could have been an issue, but probably a he bastard. But the skills he had to actually build that website and fake all of this stuff. Like, imagine if you put your skills to good use, people would, it would just be better. Like, that's the sad thing. It was more than the gut punch of losing a bit of money. It was like, man, all these crap websites I have to deal with all these bugs, and this freaking fake scam website was bug free and managed to scam me. Like, what's going on? Do something good in the world. So pour a drink to my homies that have also been scammed, hacked, and whatever. Yeah.
Oh, and Dan, that's what I thought of when I watched The Wolf of Wall Street with Leonardo DiCaprio, and he's just working so hard to pump these pink slip, these penny stocks, right? And he's just like, he goes job to job, work to work, becomes his own boss, gets a whole team of these psychopaths pushing these penny stocks. Like, he will do anything to get the money, anything except actually make a product that people need and provide it to them at an affordable price, right? Anything but a straightforward business I will do. And then on the other hand, if you think of a movie like The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith, where the guy is just hustling, right? He's just cleaning up things, being a janitor, selling this, selling that, being a salesman, working his way up, again, honestly, through the hard work. And sadly, our culture kind of rewards the Wolf of Wall Street. he's back out there. He's being quoted by articles. He's been restored by this movie, even though the movie at the end pretty much shows you the horror that, like, for as much excess as they had, they still brought him back and had him making speeches and writing books and being a part of the financial system, despite this incredible crime that, you know, when you watch it, like, you're not even really seeing the other side, where some, you know, sad person somewhere, like we're talking about in Alabama here, sends their $10,000 life savings off to the scam. And yes, it is amazing the lengths that people will go to, and that they could build whole enterprises, whole exchanges, whole, you know, gambling websites, other, you know, entertainment, other ways to make money. But they choose the scamming. Speaking of scammers, let's move on to issue 4. We are never ever getting back together. Taylor Swift actually duped by FTX after signing $100 million plus deal. We all remember during the time of FTX, everyone was trashing on Tom Brady or Shaquille O'Neal or whoever it was that convinced you that was a good exchange. Maybe it was Mr. Wonderful. And all the time, there was this undercurrent where they said, Taylor Swift said no. Taylor Swift is too smart to sign a deal with that crypto huckster. Taylor Swift asked intelligent questions that brought her investing advice better than Tom Brady or Shaquille O'Neal or whoever your favorite star of the FTX deal was. As it turns out, and this is amazing because I can't believe they allowed this to happen, Taylor Swift's people signed the contract. FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried allegedly were offering her $100 million for a promotion, an incredible amount of money. As Krusty the Clown said, they backed a dump truck up to my house, a dump truck. So yes, the amazing thing, it's not amazing that they took the 100 million. And then in reality, as it seems, Sam did not pay, or Sam backed out after having her beautiful signature on a contract. I'd frame that, put that on eBay. But it's amazing that Taylor and her people signed it. It's amazing that they allowed this nonsense to go on, where they were like putting out the story. I've been like, well, sorry guys, we actually did sign the contract. I would have gotten this out sooner. Waiting forever seems like a bigger story. Dan, Eve, what do you think? Taylor Swift, not a financial expert, but dozens of articles in the media allowed this to go on. Also, Josh says, shout out to Proper Goal again. Thanks so much for donating in the super chat. We're going to give you a better seat in the auditorium or something. I don't know. We're going to improve your vision now. It's in HD. Dan, Eve, what about this Taylor Swift? And of course, we want to hear a bunch of puns, because that's all the media likes to do, is write these articles about. They ponder on the way up and they ponder on the way down.
Georgia. Oh, hang on a sec. It's funny how it's played out, right? Because she would have been silent about being rejected, but as soon as it seemed like a good move to have actually rejected FTX, because, you know, she was some sort of due diligence genius.
She's good at everything. She's good at singing, music. She's beautiful. And she's a financial genius.
Maybe she's just she kind of got on her high horse about it and tried to pretend, because she thought Sam was going down and the information wouldn't come out. But obviously, everything's coming out of the woodwork with all this paperwork. And maybe she wanted to start a pump and dump group in a Telegram group. So she's like, yeah, look at this. I called this, back in the day. And so, as well as being a superstar, she has her own Telegram pump shill group. It doesn't matter what happens about the bad publicity, because I'm sure she'll just shake it off.
Oh, there it is, the Taylor Swift lyric reference. Josh Shigala, what do you think about Tay Tay? Not such a financial genius. And the incredible irony that they allowed everyone to run with those articles. They could have just said, hey, we did try to do a deal with them. They could have just taken it early. Instead, we're getting a whole nother fun round of FTX endorsement stories. Oh, but Josh is...
I bet you there's a whole lot of them in the back end. This isn't the end of FTX. It's going to keep on. It's the turd that keeps on smelling. It just keeps on going. No matter how dry and crusty it is, it just stinks more and more. It's phenomenal actually how much this Sam guy promised such vast amounts of life-changing wealth, even to the wealthy. You know, even to Taylor Swift, these are life-changing amounts of money. And of course, you know, why would you say to anybody that, oh no, they duped us, if you could look like a financial genius for a day? I don't know. But Taylor, yeah, I don't know. I don't actually know much about her. I don't know her songs. I'm a bit of a pop culture naive guy. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me that there's these sorts of deals flying around from Sam, like $100 million. Actually, it reminds me, there was another woman who actually had a real deal on the table. What was her name? It's the British rapper. And she got asked for 1,000 Bitcoin to play, or 10,000 Bitcoin or something to play in Second Life all those years ago, like in 2012 or something, 2013.
Yeah, yeah.
And she rejected it and laughed at it. And all years later, she could have been a billionaire from that.
Well, and it's so funny because people had the .com example right there. They're like, if I had listened to someone and invested in eBay or Amazon early on, I would have killed it, right? And then they're like, no, distrust every computer person that comes along. And I think in the same way, Josh, our good friend Tatiana, and she's talked about it several times, so I don't think we're out of school here, but early on, the BitPay guys went to her and said, hey, take some crypto, do a show. And I don't want to imagine the horrifying amount of Bitcoin they probably offered. That was probably 30 or 100 or who knows. And she could have stacked it and she could have done great. But at the time, nobody wanted Bitcoin. Nobody knew about it. It's almost impossible to think of a situation where she says, I'll take the Bitcoin instead of taking dollars that she needs in the short term to pay rent, to pay reality, you know, real things. It's certainly not her fault, not anyone's fault. Everyone had a chance like this. But yeah, that big singer, she had a huge chance.
Lily Allen, my wife just shouted across the room. Yeah, Lily Allen.
And you never heard of her for like a Taylor Swift. So it's, and once again, like you say, Josh, to think about world changing money to Taylor, that she would be like, I want that 100 million. Like, we should get that 100 million, take that off the table. You know, she's like, yeah, I'll do 3 less shows. I'll do 10 less shows. Like, she could really change her life with that money. So it's a fun, incredible story. I think we're going to move on. I don't know if we have an exit question there. Dan, Eve, are you ready with a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
Mallorca Blockchain Day is next Thursday, right? So it seems like half the crew, most of the crew is going to be out there. We haven't managed to convince Martine yet, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And it's going to be a beautiful little trip.
Yep, we're going to Mallorca Blockchain Days, July 13th through 16th in Palma, Mallorca, Spain. I think there's still tickets left. They've got information about the speakers. Sound like Peter Todd will be there. Josh Shigala, will you be at Mallorca Blockchain Days?
I sure will be. It'll be very exciting. I can't wait. I've been every single year. It's one of the better conferences because it's small, it's tight knit. It's a bunch of really cool, old school, real serious people and fun people. And afterwards, there's a experience ticket you can buy, and we all go out on a boat and throw our treasures overboard.
Horrible boating accidents. So many Satoshis destroyed, lost forever.
No, it's a fun, it's really fun, really cool group of people, and definitely recommend a trip. You know, Mallorca is one of these things. Hardly anyone lives on the island, so you do have to make a trip for it. But it's a trip that's well worth it, and I hope you make it.
And let's go and check out some of these speakers here. Thomas from Electrum Wallet, excellent speaker. Jiraj from Paraleni Polis. We've got Christian Luque, who's organizing the conference from Mallorca Blockchain. Hey, that Ben Arc guy from LN Bits will be there. We know him, friend of the show. Pavel Rusnik, or Stick, one of the founders of Trezor and the mining pool, Satoshi Labs. Vlad Costa, our friend who's been on the show. Christian Rutzel, another friend of the show. DJ Rutzel. Victoria Jones, also on the show. So we're seeing a lot of World Crypto Network people here. We've got an economist, Rahim Tazidan, and Peter Todd. We've talked to him. Dawn, a Bitcoin philosopher. More people that I don't know. Gokhan, we know him from Blockchain Hotel. And Dominic Frisby, one of the writers of an early book about Bitcoin. Also some banking professors here. Keychain X, software development, Wasabi wallets, philosopher of Bitcoin. So sounds like a great speaking lineup. It's just coming up about a week away in Majorca, Spain. So hope to see you guys there. My story of the week is that we're starting the Mad Tour 7, the trip to Spain, because I'm going to fly to Barcelona and then I'm going to fly to Majorca, and then I will be there at Majorca Blockchain Days. So we hope maybe we'll be able to do a live Bitcoin group or something like that from Majorca, try to get some interviews, talk to some people, and get it all done up there in Majorca. So we're running out of time, but first we want to quote Taylor Swift lyrics, as she said, and maybe this is about banks, maybe this is about FTX and Sam, maybe she's bringing this into her songs now, writing about SBF and FTX. She says, "I remember when we broke up the first time, saying, 'This is it, I've had enough,' 'cause like we hadn't seen each other in a month, when you said you needed space. What? Then you come around again and say, 'Baby, I miss you. I swear I'm going to change. Trust me.' Remember how that lasted for a day? I say I hate you. We break up. You call me. I love you." Taylor Swift just can't get away from those banks and that SBF. She just wanted $100 million. That's all she wanted. So thanks to everybody for joining us. Thanks for Propagal for sending the donations. It's amazing in the super chat. Thanks everybody for live chatting, giving us the thumbs up. If you're watching later, give us a comment. Give us your opinion. Do you think there'll be an ETF? Are you excited about Taylor Swift's near run-in with Bitcoin and FTX? Can you imagine what the commercial would have been? Like, I buy Bitcoin. I mean, she could have sang a song about it. Like, there's a whole thing. So we were that close, boys. We're that close. Next time we'll sign Taylor Swift and actually pay her. So thanks to everybody for joining us. Until next time, bye bye.